Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Please accept our humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Welcome to this morning Srimad Bhagavatam class. So in Canto 2, which is entitled Cosmic Manifestation, chapter 6 and text 8 this morning. So without further ado, we'll start the class. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Janavallabha Girivadadhari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivadadhari Yashodanandana Vrajanaranjana Yashodanandana Vrajanaranjana Jamunatira Vanachari Jamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivadadhari Yashodanandana Vrajanaranjana Yashodanandana Vrajanaranjana Jamunatira Vanachari Jamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari 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 Jayam Vishnupad Parahansa Privajakachaja Astotar Sata Sishimaris Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Shirvapad Ki Jai Jayam Vishnupad Parahamsa Privajakachaja Astotar Sata Sishimaris Divine Grace Shira Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavin Ki Jai Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद से अद्वैत गदाधर शिवाचार्य गौर भक्तवृंद की जय श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरि गोवर्धन की जय वृंदावन धाम की जय मथुरा धाम की जय नवद्वीप धाम की जय जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय जगन्नाथ स्वामी की जय गंगा माई की जय जमुना माई की जय तुलसी देवी की जय भक्ति देवी की जय हरे कृष्ण महामंत्र की जय Samaveta Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Nitai Gaura Premanande. Hari Hari Bo. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the lotus feet of Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga Srila Prabhupada. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Tira Swami Nityanamini Namaste Krishna Padaya Prabhupada Siddharthani Shri Gaura Karuna Shakti Bhakti Tira Nityanamini Narayana Namaskritya Naruntevam Naruttamam Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayat Nashtaprayesva Bhadresu Nityam Bhagavati Sevaya Bhavatu Tamasloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Hare Krishna Jai Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai Shri Gurudev Ki Jai. So, Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Cosmic Manifestation, Chapter 6, Purusha Shukta confirmed in Text 8. Apam virasya sagavsya parjanasya prajapati pumsha shishna upastastu prajatyananda nivite. Apam virasya sagasyam parjanyasya prajapati pumsa shishna upathastu prajatyananda nirvite. Apam virasya sagasyam parjanyasya prajapati pumsa shishna upathastu Prajatyananda Nivrite. Hare Krishna. If you like to chant, please unmute yourself and do that now. Hare Krishna.
अपं वीर्यस्य सर्गस्य पर्जनस्य प्रजापते पुंसः शेष उपस्थस्तु प्रजाति आनन्दनिवृत्तिः हरे कृष्ण
Hare Krishna. Anyone else?
Apam viryasya sargasya parjanyasya prajapate pumsa shishna upastastu prajati ananda nirvrite. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Okay. Anyone else?
Apam viryasya sargasya parjanyasya prajapate pumsa sishna upastastu prajati ananda nivrite. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Okay, we'll do it forward now. Hare Krishna. Apam of water. Viryasya of the semen. Sargasya of the generative. Pajanyasya of rains, Prajapate of the Creator, Punsha of the Lord, Shishna the genitals, Upasyatu the place where the genitals are situated, Prajati due to begetting, Ananda pleasure, Nivite cause. Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. From the Lord's genitals originate water, semen, generatives, rain, and the procreators. His genitals are the cause of a pleasure that counteracts the distress of begetting. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The genitals and the pleasure of begetting counteract the distresses of family encumbrances. One would cease to generate altogether if they were not by the grace of the Lord, a coating, a pleasure-giving substance on the surface of the generative organs. This substance gives a pleasure so intense that it counteracts fully the distress of family encumbrances. A person is so captivated by this pleasure-giving substance that he is not satisfied by begetting a single child, but increases the number of children with great risk in regard to maintaining them simply for this pleasure-giving substance. This pleasure-giving substance is not false, however, because it originates from the transcendental body of the Lord. In other words, the pleasure-giving substance is a reality, but it has taken on an aspect of pervertedness on account of material contamination. In the material world, sex life is the cause of many distresses on account of material contact. Therefore, the sex life of the material world should not be encouraged beyond the necessity. There is a necessity for begetting progeny, even in the material world, but such generation of children must be carried out with full responsibility for spiritual values. The spiritual values of life can be realized in the human form of material existence, and the human being must adopt family planning with reference to the context of spiritual values and not otherwise. The degraded form of material restriction by use of contraceptive, etc., is the grossest type of material contamination. Materialists who use these devices want to fully utilize the pleasure potency of the coating on the genitals by artificial means without knowing the spiritual importance. And without knowledge of spiritual values, the less intelligent man tries to utilize only the material sense pleasure of the genitals. Oma Ginati Mirandasya, Gyana Gyana Shalakaya, Chakshum Militam Dina Tasma Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manovistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Nama Om Vishnu Paraya Krishna Preshnaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitinamini. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Shatari. Namo Mahabharanyaya Krishna Prema Padayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gaurachise Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasari Gaur Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Ram Ram Hare Hare. The translation again. From the Lord's genitals originate water, semen, generatives, rains, and the procreators. His genitals are a cause of pleasure that counteracts the distress of begetting. So hopefully this is this part of Srimad Bhagavatam that will actually help us, hopefully, through this life that we're leading, especially for the process of purification. And we say that because the lifestyle now on this planet is geared much more towards sense pleasure, sense gratification, especially sexual pleasure. And so Bhagavatam, who does this is our scripture that does not leave any stone unturned, talks about everything that is affecting our lives in one way or the other, but from a spiritual standpoint, so that we know what is to be done and what is not to be done. When we're clear about what's to be done and what is not to be done, then we will become happy. Our life will be quite pleasurable as servants of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But some things have to be made clear, because as Kali Yuga progresses, more and more situations of disturbance more and more of situations of deceit come into play. And then after a while, people begin to think that what's actually abnormal is normal. And so Srimad Bhagavatam brings up all of these, and it is part of the creation. But we have to remember, those of us that were Christians before, we know that man is made in the image of the Lord. So if man has reproductive organs, then it is actually originating from the Supreme Lord itself. And this is what this text is talking about. So from the lost Gentiles generate water, or originate water, semen, generatives, that is the organs for reproduction. It's just called generatives. The rains and procreators. Interesting, they talked about water and then they talked about the rains, which is pretty much the same thing. But in terms of how it comes out, rains, we know how. That's from the clouds. And the procreators. And later, other parts of the Shastra, there are those that are named as the, progenitors. Lord Brahma, Daksha, and then there are many more, a lot of them. So we won't have actually named all of them, but Diti, Aditi, Kashyapa, they all helped in part of the creation, some parts of it. So the Lord spreads the task, if you will, to different demigods and those who are, and they get empowered like that, those in heavenly planets. They actually take part in some of the creations, not Lord Brahma only, especially when he talks about begetting. That is spread among many, many distinguished saintly personalities. In the purport, well, before we get to the purport, he says, here it's been described that the lost genitals are a cause of a pleasure that counteracts the distress of begetting. And this is a very important statement. The distress of begetting. We know about begetting from this body that we have, the human body. We know, women especially know this, that the whole period of pregnancy, there's a lot of changes that occur in the body. Outwardly, everybody can see a pregnant woman has a stomach that's gotten bigger or belly that's gotten bigger. That is obvious. Sometimes the size of the woman itself increases. She gets actually bigger. Sometimes it doesn't. But the stomach definitely gets bigger because in the abdomen area, the fetus is being, as we call the fetus, a new life. So it starts from this. After the seeding process between man and the woman, then the seminal fluid, the semen from the man, fertilizes the egg from the woman. Not only that, that's just on a material platform. Then the Lord arranges for the soul of that particular entity to also enter at that time. Now, everything is really small in size. So when the soul enters, that's also confirmation of the fact that the soul's dimensions are also small. In fact, the soul is atomic in size. Without the soul entering, there will be no beginning of life. It does not matter the seminal fluid is there and the egg is there. Without the soul, there is no actual startup of the formation of another person, what we call a baby. So the soul is the one that gives consciousness. And the soul is also one that triggers the different parts of the body to begin to form. Now, it's been explained here, the pleasure from sex act counteracts the distress of begetting. It counteracts the distress of begetting, which means there is a distress associated with begetting, having a child, pregnancy and childbirth, or as it's called, labor. And women that have had children know that very well. It is not an easy process. There is change of hormones. There is craving for different things, different foodstuffs. There are all kinds of changes as the pregnancy goes on, and this child is being formed. That's on the side of the mother. Mm. When that time comes, about 9 months or so from the time the pregnancy started, and then the child is ready to come out. We'll talk about the child's situation, the child's experience also. This right now we're just focusing on the mother. Then there are labor pains associated with the opening of the womb, the door of the womb. Sometimes you call it the cervix, the door of the womb, that this child is going to come out. A lot of pain is associated with it. Those who go through classes for birthing, they are taught, and my wife and I actually went for one for our firstborn. They are taught, they're given a sense of what the pain is going to be like. Mm. And there's literally exercises where pain is given to the pregnant mother just to prepare that particular female that's pregnant, or the woman that's pregnant, for what's about to happen when labor starts. And the preparation, so much preparation goes into it. Won't be that we won't talk about so much. But finally, the child does in fact come from the genital of the woman, along with the umbilical cord, which is attached to the navel of the child, that gives the nutrition, food to the child all that time. Then, of course, the navel itself becomes insensitive to the point where when it gets cut, because now the child is going to use his mouth for feeding. When it gets cut, there is no pain. So that's for the mother's side. What does the child go through? When the child, by the mercy of the Lord, the soul comes inside this formation of the fusion of the semina or the seminal fluid and the egg, and the whole code that's inside generated or set aside by the Lord to produce a child. When it comes into action, the life force, the soul, begins to make all of this. That is, the baby now is being formed. It's in an environment that is very, very difficult. There's a fluid, and that fluid is called the amniotic fluid. And that fluid has, unfortunately, all kinds of other small living entities in it. We'll just call a general term. There are germs in it. It is not the cleanest of liquids, to put it mildly. And this is where the child is born. So it is actually a traumatic situation for the child. At first, in the first 7 months, the child is there, the breathing. Sometimes those who will check, oh, I have a girl, a boy, or maybe the breathing, is the child alive? Everything is going on okay. That's all done. But the child begins sometimes to move around, and it's explained in the Shastra that when the child is moving around, it's not that the child wants to move around. How much space is there anyway? It's very, very small space. But it moves around because the child experiences distress from some of these germs trying to bite the child. And the child moves around in the womb to try to minimize that distress. So it's quite traumatic for the child. And then before the child comes out of the womb, the child is actually positioned so that the head will come out first. And that also necessitates the child to be upside down in the womb. So imagine a confined space and being upside down. We've all gone through that. But do we remember? No, that's the mercy of the Lord. The Lord says, I'm seated in everyone's heart. Sava Sachaham Matasmiti Gyanam Apohanam Cha. I'm seated in everyone's heart. From me comes knowledge, remembrance, and forgetfulness. At the time the child was in the womb, it experienced a lot of trauma, and in fact, it's said in the Shastra that the child begins to pray. This is like after 7 months, 8 months, the child begins to pray. The Lord, please take me out of this situation. And this time, I will be one who would take your commandments, your instructions seriously. Literally, the child pleads for help that I don't want to go through this again. But as soon as the child comes out, and the mother, we're talking about a normal situation, the mother and the father gets introduced later to the child. The child doesn't know the father, they know the mother. And the child now is being cared for. They tend to forget what they've been through. Mhm. They tend to forget the prayer that they actually said. And then they begin to see the world as a place for sense gratification. And that's why Sri Prabhupada, we got to thank him so much because he's translated these texts and also all these books and also guided us on the right path to be involved in. What we're saying in so many words is it is going to be, in a sense, sabotage to oneself to go back into the womb, to go through the problems of being born again, and then coming to the world in Kali Yuga, which is the worst time of the 4 cycles of yugas, where a religion is at its highest, and to come do this life all over again. That the person who is thinking that way is actually not just that the person is ignorant, but actually the more important thing is they're sabotaging the pleasure that awaits them in the spiritual world. So we're saying all that to say that this process that's been given to us, Krishna consciousness, has to be taken very seriously. And it's to your credit that you do obey the very first point in devotion service, hearing. You've come and we're all hearing. I've prayed to my Guru Maharaj and to Srila Prabhupada to be used as just a way to get messages across to everyone. So it's for my own purification also. Mm-hmm. So the reason why this pleasure-giving substance is coded onto the genitals for both the man and the woman, inside for the woman, outside for the man, is because the process of pregnancy and childbirth is difficult, to say the least. And if there wasn't something to lure the woman to become pregnant, why would they want to become pregnant? If everything about the egg fertilization and all of that was a difficult process or not even enjoyable in any way, many women would back out of this whole idea of having a child. So Krishna has allowed this pleasure-giving substance to be at the very first process, which means sex life, of getting the woman pregnant so that a child can come. And so that's been sweetened just so the whole process would begin. In other words, that pleasure-giving substance is just a lure for pregnancy to actually occur. So there's that for the man, and there's also that for the woman. Now, Srila Prabhupada says that some people are so captivated by just this pleasure-giving substance that they won't even get just a single child. They will continue to involve themselves with more pregnancies, have more children come, and then you have to take care of the children. And taking care of the children is not easy. When the very first time a child comes out of the womb, the nights are going to be sleepless for the mother. Because every 1 to 2 hours, the child wants to feed and you have to breastfeed them. Even if you're not breastfeeding them, these days, because of the demonic lifestyle that we live, sometimes there's formula or whatever that's made for the child. Still, you have to give that to the child. It's better to breastfeed a child. Sometimes some of these so-called formulas that are given to the child, these big companies are aware of the fact that the child will feed a number of times even through the night. And so they deliberately put something that would make the child drowsy into that kind of so-called formula. So that when the child takes it, then they sleep for a longer period. Don't start drugging your child like that. Don't. Just give them breast milk. Mm? But it does, if you give breast milk too, every 2 hours or so, at the very least, you have to wake up and give more breast milk. Mm? So it becomes then a labor of love. Mm? We'll put it mildly. And of course, we find immediately that your expenses have gone up too. And then also time has to be spent for the child. Your time is really around the child's time and the child's security and the child's safety and the child's satisfaction. But it is something that we all do. All species do. All species. The animals have their children too. And they also have to protect the children in a much more difficult situation than ours. But because all of these difficulties are there, then the pleasure-giving substance is given by the Lord. In other parts of the Shastra, it actually says, Prabhupada says that the Lord commissioned the demigods to put it there, this pleasure-giving part of it. But everything comes ultimately from the Lord. So whether it says that the Lord gave it or the demigods gave it, the demigods don't have anything themselves. Everything is given to them by the Lord. So it's pretty much along the same reasoning. So the pleasure-giving substance is not false. The Lord is the one from whom this pleasure-giving part of it originates. So it's a reality. But in this material world, people just want to enjoy their senses. They know, as we described, that pregnancy is difficult, and therefore they just want the sex life and the pleasure-giving substance, experience that, but not go on to the pregnancy part. Therefore, again, as the world of artificialism is here so much, there's all of these things like contraceptives that have been, made and put on the market, again, to disrupt the natural flow of things of the body. Far too many things that we take are like that. Now, this degraded form, Srila Prabhupada said, of family restriction by use of contraceptives is the grossest type of material contamination. Anybody that uses contraceptives is going to pay for it with their own physical body. Never mind Yamaraj getting, not even that. Every contraceptive has a harmful side effect. Every one of them. So it's no point using it. So we are in this material world. We are in the earth created by Lord Brahma. Mode of passion is very prevalent here. And people just get, people know, the companies know that they can advertise something with a sexual twist to it and it will attract more people to that thing. So sometimes some things that has nothing to do with passion is still sold using people's attraction to sex life. This way back, some years back, a couple of decades back at least, no, it's actually more than that, before I became a devotee, there was one magazine that I used to look at and read from. Of course, when I became a devotee, I stopped reading it. But there was an advertisement for hairstyles for women, Black women, hairstyles. And they showed different types of hairstyles. Of course, I didn't pay that much attention to it because it doesn't really have much to do with me being in a male body. But one thing caught my attention. There was a beautiful woman with a particular hairstyle that they're taking a picture and put in this magazine. But that woman is wearing this bra and panties. And I'm thinking, why? You're advertising the hair and this is the way she dresses? Why? So even before I became a devotee, I was questioning all of these things. So everything is being pushed with sex life. Whenever they can, they put it in. just to get people interested. Hmm? I'm sorry to laugh about it, what I was going to talk about. Chanamali Swami talked about one situation that he faced. He went to a store, and um, at the time he was using lighters to light his incense when he's doing his puja. And the lighter had this that he had burned out. So, it's convenient to carry that and he's traveling around. So he was using a lighter. So he went to a particular store to get lighter. And he went to the counter and asked. He wanted one that was quite efficient. Sometimes you have to just kind of push and press that little ball or disc on the side. And sometimes, the friction causes the lighter to light up. And some of them are effective and some of them are not effective. So he was looking for one that would be good, easy to get light from the lighter. And the person at the desk told him that, well, I don't really know which one, but we have all different kinds of it. But then he pointed a particular one. There is this particular lighter with this half-naked woman's picture on there. That one keeps to be selling more than all of them. So he told Chandamali Swami that basically, if you want me to tell you which one, then based on popular demand for it, is this particular one with a half-naked woman. This Chandamali Swami is a sannyasi now. And this was telling, of course, that the person doesn't know that Chandamali Swami is a sannyasi. So she came back and Chandamali Swami wasn't about to buy that. So he said, is there any one of them apart from this one too? Anyone? He asked. And then the clerk told him, listen, as far as I'm concerned, they all work well. They all work well. So then Chandamali Swami just basically bought another one that didn't have any picture like that. We were making the point that every time this world is tending to use sex life to attract people for all kinds of things that are not even related to it. And then just this pleasure thing that they want, only the pleasure that they want, without taking care of the responsibility of a child that should come from it, is what's being practiced now. So as devotees, we're told, stay away from it. Now, there's some other references in the Srimad Bhagavatam that we'll bring up the rest of the time that we have. So it's one of our regulated principles. Sex life is for progeny, for getting a child. A man and a woman who are married can take part in sex life when they decide they want a child. The sexual energy can be taken to other aspects of life. Sex life is definitely more the passion. And passion is also the same energy that is associated with creating. Therefore, our creative energy is the same thing as that same sexual energy. What we're saying is that we can use creativity. This is just the material part now. We can use creativity, whatever creative thing or whatever we like to do. If we do more of that, it would actually dampen that urge for sex life, creativity. That's on the material platform. On the spiritual platform, when we use our senses, engage our senses in serving the Lord and stay busy engaging the senses, the senses become automatically controlled. That's all the senses, including one that involves sex life also. The Lord knows that those who are serious want to go back to the spiritual world. The Lord also knows that of our regulated principles, illicit sex is one of them. And the Lord also knows that in this world that we're in, people are using passion to try to market the things. So we're caught in a spiral that's going, or if you like, current that's going downhill rather than in a place that would save us and take us out of this material body. And so that help is always there. When we chant the holy name of the Lord, Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, and chant with attention and chant seriously, there will be internal happiness that will begin to come to our own hearts. And that internal happiness is so, so effective against the things that are to be avoided, including illicit sex. So if we take this process of chanting very seriously, in terms of the quality of chanting, not just the quantity only, but the quality of chanting, the quantity is also important. It's good if you're not at 16 rounds to get to it at some point. And we'll offer a suggestion. It's already known that anything that is done by a person, or say a particular habit, if you change it, let's just say the person answers the phone with their left hand. And if you say that, all right, I want to do an experiment. Every time my phone rings, I'm going to answer it with my right hand. I'm going to pick it up with my right hand. If you do that for 3 weeks straight, it will become a habit. Mm? So we have to begin to change the ways in which we do things from what is not acceptable in devotee life, and just keep practicing that. Give yourself about 3 weeks and you begin to do it quite well. The habit develops only after 3 weeks. This is known and proven by psychologists. You can try it. And so with that in the back of your mind, whatever thing that we have as issues in our devotee life that we need to change, that's all it takes. Try it for 3 weeks. I'm not able to chant 16 rounds. You can break it up and chant some of the rounds in the morning, chant some of the rounds in the evening. The rest of the time you're at work. That's understandable. Or if you're doing a certain number of rounds, that maybe 4, 5, 6, I don't know. That's all you do in a day. The next round, if you're chanting 4 rounds, for example, the next round takes only about no more than 8 to 10 minutes. Even if you're slow, if you're fast, it could take 6 minutes. That's 6 minutes that you can adjust for. Sometimes we waste so much time, especially watching TV and so on. Just give 6 minutes. So the point we're making is, if you chant your minimum rounds that you'll be in, the number of rounds you're able to chant based on what your day is like, but do that for about a month. Remember, 3 weeks, it becomes a habit. Do that for about a month. The next month, like February is coming up, so you just increase by 1 round. Then February is 20, well, I think it's 2025, so it's going to be 28 days. After 4 weeks, so that's way past 3 weeks. Remember, 3 weeks, it becomes a habit. So then you go 1 more round. Like that. 1 more round in March, 1 more round in April, 1 more round in May, like that. Every time taking just a few more minutes. By the end of the year, you'll be close to 16 rounds, or you'll be at 16 rounds. And the Lord is time. Krishna says, time I am. Don't think that, there's so much to do, I won't be able to finish. No, that's a very deceptive statement. The mantra is what takes us back to the spiritual world. So that is actually priority. And if we're not able to get to that 16 rounds, but we do only 1 extra round a month, we will get there. Because we'll be able to adjust the time so that we're able to do it. And if it gets to a time where your morning, it's just, you got to 8 rounds, 10 rounds, 12 rounds, and now the morning you can't finish all of those 16 or 12, you still keep counting, and monthly you're increasing, then break it up. Break it up, do some in the morning and some in the evening, and you keep going, and you will get 16 rounds. Now, when we chant with that kind of attention and chant the number of rounds minimum that Srila Prabhupada has prescribed for us, he's our spiritual doctor, then we get help with our weaknesses, including sex life. And we begin to accept the fact that it is possible to do it. Even though sometimes the mind will latch on to things that are in the mode of passion, even the sexual activity itself, think about it. But It will just go through, it's like one part of the mind and out the other part of the mind. The Lord will help us. We can't do this alone, but with the help of the Lord, it is possible to actually be successful in spiritual life. So in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 1, Text 1, the very first text of Srimad Bhagavatam, towards the end, Srila Prabhupada has brought some points up, quoting Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. So this part I'm going to read just like it is. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur specifically deals with the original and pure sex psychology. It's called Adi Ras, devoid of mundane inebriety. The whole material creation is moving under the principle of sex life. So it's good to know that. This is how it's moving, under that principle. In modern civilization, sex life is the focal point for all activities. Just like the example I gave about this hairstyle I've already spent, and they were still using that. Whenever one turns his face, he sees sex life predominant. Therefore, sex life is not unreal. And that's what's the that's the point he wants to make. Its reality is experienced in the spiritual world. Remember, the material world is just a perverted reflection of what's in the spiritual world. So the material sex life is only a perverted reflection of the original fact, which means the real sex life is in the spiritual world. What we have here is a perverted reflection of it with this particular pleasure-giving substance put there just so people will be interested in it, just so people can go through the problems of pregnancy and have a child. That's why it's there. That's why it's there. But it's actually a perverted reflection of the original fact. The original fact is in the absolute truth. And so Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur makes the point that absolute truth cannot be impersonal. It's a person. That's why in the text it just talks about the Lord's genitals, because every human being, man and woman, has genitals. But it is originating from the Lord. So the impersonalist philosophers have given indirect impetus or more attention to the abominable, mundane sex life because they have stressed more, overstressed the impersonality of the ultimate truth. Mayavadis think that the Lord is impersonal. So they give an indirect impetus or more attention to the way sex life is here. But Srila Prabhupada is saying is that everything here in the material world is a perverted reflection. The rest of the things that we're doing in Krishna consciousness, we're fortunate to have the Hare Krishna Mahamantra because that is spiritual. It's from the spiritual world. And the rest of the things that we do are practice. In devotional service, they are practice for us to be able to do the real thing when we go back to the spiritual world. So we've been given the opportunity to practice how to relate to each other in sadhu sangha because there's perfect relationship between all the entities in the spiritual world. Perfect, loving relationship between them. So we're practicing here. So that's devotional service. So because people don't know that the real sex life is actually in the spiritual world, men have, without this information, accepted the perverted material sex life as the all in all. So much is talked about it. Just because of the pleasure-giving substance that is to lure the man and the woman to make the woman pregnant for getting a child. So that's why we have this illicit sex principle. We shouldn't involve ourselves in it unless we want a child. And there should be preparation also. There's Garbhadan Sanskara, Prabhupada has described it, where chant extra rounds. And the whole idea is to invite a soul of high quality into the family. And if we do that, it makes Krishna consciousness for the child so much easier. There are all kinds of souls trying to come to this material world. And so it's nice to have a high level person or soul who is serious about going back to Godhead, take birth. in the family. It's easier to bring it, to the temple as a little child, and later on they'll learn so many things, and then it will be like second nature to them. I'm in the woody. They were just brought up that way. But if we involve ourselves in sex life from only a material standpoint, no preparation, no prayers, no chanting before the actual seeding process, then we're putting ourselves in a situation where we invite soul of low spiritual caliber. Mm. And then we have all kinds of problems with them. So you want to come to Krishna consciousness, but that child is not interested. Well, that's the soul we invited. So the sex act is actually part of service for the woodies. And the preparation for it is a serious preparation. Mm. So that's what we should involve ourselves in. And the rest of the time, engage the senses in other activities in devotional service, and we'll be definitely able to put ourselves in check as far as mundane sexual activities or involving sexual activity without wanting a child like people do now these days. It is not good. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, text 11, I am the strength of the strong, devoid of passion and desire, and I am sex life that is not contrary to religious principles. So if we involve ourselves in sex life according to the religious principles, then actually it's inviting Krishna into our lives. And Krishna responds to it because he says, Ye atama papajante tam sateva pajamiyaham. The extent to which we surrender to the process, and be genuine, then he says, I reward accordingly. We will get good progeny, a person that's interested in sex life. And as a parent, we won't have a hard time, interested in Krishna consciousness, sorry about that. And as a parent, we won't have any problem at all bringing them into Krishna consciousness and making them stay in Krishna consciousness. Then our lives will be successful as parents. So that we're facing. This is what we're facing. And as if we're going to be grihastas, because you can be, brahmacharis too, or they don't have any sex life at all, no progeny. So this is especially for grihastas, householders. Take the process seriously, chant, and work your way towards 16 rounds from a suggestion that we made or whatever you want to do to get there, because that's obeying Srila Prabhupada's instruction. He said the chanting at 16 minimum, down from 64. The devotee was actually to chant 64 every day, 64 rounds of japa. And also do as much devotional service activities as possible, especially in the temple. The more we use the senses, the more senses get controlled, and then we become happier because it's all being channeled to devotional service. In that way, then even though we are in an arena of passion, it won't affect us so much. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you very much. Now this is time for unmuting yourself and sharing, asking questions, sharing realizations. Let's have some Krishna Katha. Hare Krishna. Does anyone want to make a comment or ask a question? It's an interesting topic, that's for sure. Sex life, and people come to Krishna consciousness and go, how come that's cut off? Why can't people who are married enjoy sex life whenever they want? Well, the other part that we didn't talk about, I can add it to it. Every time we talked about the earlier part, but we talked about another thing that connects to this. We said that when a person is involved in sex life, there's pregnancy that's supposed to follow. And so a soul also enters the womb of a woman. The eggs being fertilized, but the soul also enters. So those who use contraception, and I'm sure we'll get to you, I just want to make this point, and then you can make a comment or question. Those who use contraceptives deliberately to stop that activity, remember the soul is also coming into the womb. So if the contraceptive is used, the soul is blocked from being part of the egg that is supposed to be fertilized. Now, this is an arrangement with Krishna's agents to put that particular soul in the womb. And we've stopped it, and therefore the soul has to be taken out because the soul has to take birth somewhere else if they're coming onto this earth. Hmm? Now it's been given to that particular woman, and the woman is involved in herself in sex act, and that didn't happen, no pregnancy because of the contraceptive. So now there has to be a different arrangement for that soul to be sent to someone else's womb. So how disruptive it is, that's the point we want to make. It's very disruptive, even on the spiritual level, as to what's going on about who is to take birth, where, based on their karma. The contraceptive disrupts it. We have to be very careful. Hare Krishna. And Srimati, please go on. Hare Krishna.
Please accept my humble obeisances, August Shishir
And then
Prabhupada.
after that, Jackie. Okay,
Yeah.
Hare Krishna.
This is a very interesting topic, but also very important. That what is coming to my mind is that that's why Prabhupada says, and he has said it so many times and did many of his lectures, that if one is ready to liberate the child, only then become a parent. Because becoming a parent is serious business. It's not playing games. It's not playing around, because sometimes I think not I think, sometimes, people in general think that it's my body, it's my child, I'm the property, I'm the controller, so I can do whatever I want. And I can do whenever I want and do whatever I want to do. But actually, these souls are Krishna's children, and these souls we don't create the souls. We don't make the souls. These souls are planted into our bodies by the Lord because they belong to Krishna. So when Krishna is giving us a child, again, going back to the fact that if we are ready to liberate, should we become parents. If not, we should not. And if we are ready to liberate and ready to become parents in service to the Supreme Lord, then Krishna will send a soul, and which is his child, his children, to he's giving us a soul and saying, please take care of my soul. He or she has to go through whatever karma he has to go through to finish up and come back to me. So I'm putting my child in your hands to take care and liberate. So please take care of my children, my child or my children. So it's the Lord. The Lord controls everything. The Lord even owns our children. And it's our duty as parents to raise them in such a way where they are liberated so that they can go back to the Supreme Lord, who is the Supreme Father. So everything is owned by the Lord. And that's why being a parent is not, and as not play. It is serious game. I mean, it's serious business, because the Lord is entrusting. That's the word I couldn't think earlier on. The Lord is entrusting his child into our care,
Yeah,
like a
yeah,
guardian, lack of a better word, like a guardian. So, and it's our duty as parents to make sure that we're able to do whatever it takes to train and raise and teach and guide and love and care and everything, and liberate them. So it's, yeah,
yeah,
being a parent, a Krishna conscious parent, is very serious business. Hare Krishna.
absolutely. Yeah. Spiritually and materially both. We have to. Sometimes people forget that we are in the material world, and so raising the child is also important from not only the spiritual standpoint, but from the material standpoint also. Here you have to work in order to live, or run a business that still work in order to live. So that preparation should be given by the parent, but there shouldn't be only one-sided situation. Some people just only just play kirtan, play mudanga, and they don't do anything for their lives to be able to put themselves in a situation where they can find meaningful work and support a family, even though they want to be grihastas. So that's not the way to do it. And then others too, who only do material things. Oh, that's more important, and therefore they put the spiritual activities on hold. That's also not good because you say, oh, but let it finish first, graduate, and then everything was, well, how do you know when the child is going to leave the body? What if the child leaves body in elementary school or high school? You don't know when the child's going to die. So if you postpone the material things, I mean the spiritual things, then what happens? the child can leave the body without having been properly prepared. So now the child can't go back to Godhead. He has to have another physical body in the material world again. So there has to be the balance. Mm? The balance should be there. We should encourage both. As we're trying for preparing them for materially, we also should make sure that spiritually they're getting more and more and more enthused and excited about Bhakti Yoga. So then they'll, when they finish school, then they're ready for life as a devotee. Hare Krishna. Jackie Mataji, please unmute yourself. Thank you. Apologize for having you wait so long, but go ahead. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Yeah.
Please accept my humble obeisances. All
That's
glory.
fine. All glory to the Prabhupada. Yeah.
Yes, you mentioned that Lord Krishna gives the demigods certain things to do, certain tasks. And if Lord Krishna is, all God, then why does he task the demigods? Why does he delegate the demigods with things to do?
The Lord, okay, all right. Yeah, I understand your question. Figure I'll just take one example. Hopefully everybody knows this person, Elon Musk. So he owns the Tesla car company. He owns another space company called SpaceX and so on. So he's a top person. But there are those different departments for all these companies. Can he do all the work himself? No. So he delegates. Now, in the case of Krishna, it's different because he's capable of everything. But he has demigods in the material world who are his assistants. That is his own will that he actually designated them like that. Because he's actually aloof from activities in the spiritual world. He's delegated because he lives with his internal potency. The Lord does spiritual activity, everything. So material world is a place for those who are disobedient, servants of the Lord who have been put here. So he has given the demigods rights to handle the material affairs. It's like there's a prison and the president of a country is there. Yes, he can have some rights. Yes, he can do some things, but there's a prison guard, there's a prison officials in the ranks, all of that, and they're the ones that handle the affairs with the prisoners. So the president of the country doesn't come to do that. He can come visit the prison whenever he wants to see what's going on, but then there are people who delegated to do that. So even at our level here, that sort of thing happens. So at a grand level, the Lord also does the same thing. That's his will. He doesn't have to do this kind of job. The material world is the house of correction. The spiritual world, he's involved in it a good bit of the time, his own self and others too. But the material world is a separated energy of the Lord. It is a place for those who have been envious of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and now they're being rehabilitated. So he gives the affairs of helping with the rehabilitation to his pure devotees, spiritual masters that come to give us guidance. And then the controlling of affairs is given to other representatives like the demigods for the material world. So that's the way he set it up. Hopefully that gives some clarity. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Anyone else? If not, then thank you very much for coming on today. It's quite an interesting subject to talk about, but Srimad Bhagavatam is Srimad Bhagavatam. It doesn't leave anything out. So for the rest of the week, have a nice Krishna conscious, very productive and Krishna conscious week. Hare Krishna. Vanchakalpatarubhishcha kripasinibheva patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you again. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Jackie. Hare Krishna.